So at this stage, we have an understanding of what comping is, and we have some understanding as well of certain comping vocabulary that we can use on the drums. The next stage for us is to figure out what and where to play this in an actual musical context. So this track that we're listening to right now is a really fun play-along loop that we're going to be familiarizing ourselves with. Let's take a moment and just listen to this together. So I want you to see if you can pick up on the main rhythmic information. Da, 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 3, 4, da, 2, da, 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 ba, da, 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 ba, 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 do, ba, do, ba, do, boom, boom. Or something like that. I think I'm like 89% there. But basically, I'm really trying to memorize that section. I want to have that in my head. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be orchestrating my comping to make sense of that melodic skeletal form. Meaning, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be playing time in my ride cymbal and my hi-hat. That's my biggest job. But then what I'm going to be doing with my snare and my bass drum is I'm going to ornament parts of that melody so that I can echo the rhythmic information of that song. This is really critical because this is also going to help me later on as an improviser where I can take parts of this melody and apply it to the drum set. Let's see what it sounds like when I take this melody in a comping situation and see what patterns I can come up with that resemble that melody. 1, 2, So each of those 8-bar sections, I was primarily playing the main rhythmic information of that loop that we're starting to familiarize ourselves with. There are different ornamentations that I played, some of them that you hopefully understand, maybe some ones that you didn't that we will understand in later sections, but you could always hear the melodic portion coming through. So my comping is framing the melody, and that's actually the biggest part of this lesson right now. So how do you start this process? The first thing that you want to do is to first sing the melody, which means you have to memorize it. Now, you're here at Drumeo, so you're trying to get better at drums. It's okay if your singing's not great, because mine isn't. But if you can sing it, that means that you really own it, and then you can make sense of that on the drums. So after I memorize it, I can determine the main structural parts of the melody. Da, 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 ba, da, 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 ba, da, ba, da, ba, da, ba, 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 da, ba, da, ba. Now, I might not be able to play all those melodic notes, but if I can sing it, I can interpret the main rhythmic information that the melody is telling me. The next step is to determine, do I want those notes on the snare or the bass drum? The easy way to determine that is understand that the snare has a certain kind of question answer. There's a certain sort of unsettling quality to the snare drum that is released bass drum. Again, question, answer. So just on the snare drum and bass alone, I would orchestrate that melody like this. some idea like that where the snare is the question and then the bass is the resolution, but you can hear that I'm outlining the rhythmic phrase of the loop. So that's step one. The next step as we get deeper into this exercise is how do we expand on that? So in my previous examples, you were seeing me play a basic idea and then continually develop it. But you could always hear the melody. So as you develop, first memorizing the melody and playing it as verbatim as possible, meaning I'm not putting ornamentation, I'm not putting extra notes as needed, then what's going to happen is that my comping can sort of fill in the gaps and I can deviate in little sections here and there, but if you can hear the melody, I'm doing my job. So what I'll do is I'll play the melody verbatim with just my hi-hat on 2 and 4, and I'll start to add little ornamentations, but you should hopefully hear the melody while I'm comping. 1, 2, 3. So pretty much all of that language I was using are in comping examples that we've already covered and that we will cover in later levels. But you can hear, even though I'm using more dense rhythmic phrases, you can hear the melody no matter what. And that's the big part of why jazz is so much fun, is I'm taking a template such as this song and I'm finding ways of reinterpreting it in the moment. And that's what gives this music, especially on the drums, so much vitality and why I love playing it. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be playing with the loop over a series of times so you can see how I develop the main ideas of the rhythm into my comping. You're going to see me take liberties, but I'm always going to be making sure that the melodic information is always being honored. I have no idea what's going to happen, but this is where the fun starts. Let's see what happens. So in that example, you heard me really play the melodic information of that piece of music between my different limbs, and you could hear the melody, but you can also see that this is really up to you where you can take it. The biggest thing is to memorize the piece of music that you're playing, and then to start to combine it with the independence information that you've already worked on, and that you're going to use these tools in the right appropriate places. So by that example, you can see how I'm having a lot of fun with my comping playing to that track. The first step is to memorize the song so I really get the rhythmic information into my system. Then by combining the comping information that I've already worked on, I can then in the moment make decisions on where specific information is going to make the melody shine. And that's going to be sort of my job. And part of the fun is to not necessarily know pre-plan where you're going to put it, but when I can start to mix match certain independence patterns to ornament the melody, that's when I can start to connect and create new ideas and to really truly improvise as a comping instrumentalist on the drums. So your assignment for this lesson is to use the loop right below this video. Then I want you to memorize this loop to the point where you can really just get it in your system by singing it. The next step then is to put that melody into place by finding the appropriate places between the snare and the bass drum that ornament the melody. The next step then would be to do that in the context where my ride cymbal is playing time and my hi-hat is playing time as well. And the goal again is that my ride cymbal is playing the jazz ride cymbal pattern uninterrupted. And same with my hi-hat. So if I can get to the point where I can melodically play this loop on the drums while I'm playing time in my right hand and tune 4 in my hi-hat, that's where we really want to be. Once you've completed this assignment, you can move on to the next lesson.